Give me fire, give me double time is out.
According to Dr. Charles Hill, digital piracy includes the purchase of counterfeit products at a discount to the price of the copyrighted product, as well as illegal file sharing of copyrighted material over peer-to-peer computer networks. While Majid Yar, professor of criminology at the University of Kent in the United Kingdom, points out that when we're dealing with piracy within legal and economic parameters, then intellectual property law and protection are at the heart of the issue. According to the 2005 Global Piracy Report, it's estimated that 35% of software is pirated, leading to $31 billion in losses to firms, making software piracy the industry's worst problem. So why do regular people on a mass scale engage in the blatant theft of intellectual property? As the technology of the internet continues to evolve, it appears as if digital piracy is going to become an easier and more prevalent activity. Professor of criminology at the University of Durham, David Wall, asserts that the internet is the driving force in digital piracy for four main reasons. First, it provides anonymity of communication. Second, it's transnational. Third, it has changed individuals' perceptions of the ownership of ideas. And simply put, the internet makes piracy easy.
So will digital piracy succumb to market forces? In Empire of Mind, Michael Strangelove explores a theoretical perspective known as the normalization thesis, which argues that the resistance within the internet community will diminish in significance as control is gradually re-established by state and market forces.
The difference in the internet, according to Strangelove, is that the previous media technologies such as print, radio, and TV were highly centralized, facilitating their incorporation into a government regulatory system that benefits the corporate and private businesses. Strangelove says that the internet is far too complex and new to say for certain that it will fall to market and government control. According to The Economist, in the new electronic world, there are few things that consumers seem willing to pay for.
The evidence shows that corporations are failing to control online behavior and keep audience within corporate websites. Here we see how the internet is challenging the power of big business. Hill says that copyright holders need to accept that file sharing is here to stay, and they should embrace the medium for the fusion of products. The only viable solution for industries is to initiate business models that incorporate the instant gratification of file sharing and support legal alternatives. An example of this is the arrival of Apple's iTunes, and in similar cases, Real Networks and Napster, which offer an online marketplace for exchange of money for property.
However, the most common strategy now being implemented by the music and film publishers is to deter the public through detection and punishment. In these cases, the copyright holders have begun suing violators, which, as Hill notes, is driving others towards more legal avenues. In 2003, the Recording Industry Association of America began using this tactic, suing 382 offenders for copyright infringement. The early statistics showed it was working. Hill cites the ComScore Media Matrix's findings that downloading in the United States dropped from 29% of internet users to 18% in the days following the RIAA's announcement that they would pursue a legal approach.
In an attempt to stigmatize piracy as morally wrong, industries advertise file sharing as an equivalent to shoplifting. According to communication scholars David Cook and Wenli Wang, a solution for the movie industry is to enable cheap and easy diffusion of movies into households. The movie industry can mitigate, perhaps eventually eliminate, the decision to pirate by making it cheaper and more convenient for users to legitimately rent a high-quality digital movie than to pirate it.
As these scholars note, when an individual illegally downloads a file, they have no guarantee of quality or legitimacy, something the industry can provide. Cook and Wang point out that because downloaders often deal with long waits, viruses, and corrupt files, the media industries can exploit their competitive advantage by providing clean digital content quickly and easily. Online content is on the rise and there's no refuting that. If businesses want to survive and thrive, they need to incorporate this new trend into their business model. In an article published in 2002, Randall Picker outlined 6 key areas in online content distribution as they are attributed to businesses establishing it as a new market trend. The 6 key areas are versioning, diminished role of gatekeepers, customer access and information, bundling, pay-per-view, and peer-to-peer file sharing.
What he says is content online allows for different versions of songs or movies to be viewed, on an iPod or a laptop, for example. So there's virtually no limit to the amount of content a person can view, apart from bandwidth limitations. Through online distribution, companies would have a vast amount of information on individuals' buying preferences. As well, it allows for more bundling and pay-per-view options. But most notably, Picker states that if businesses don't invest in these services, then peer-to-peer file sharing is the public's only other option, and thus they won't ever stop. So what's Canada's role in all of this?
The use of peer-to-peer technology in Canada is staggering, and Canada is a world leader in pirated activities. According to Barry Sookman, one of Canada's leading authorities on the subject of intellectual property law, Canada is viewed as a country which has very weak and ineffective digital piracy laws and is home to many of the most popular illegitimate file-sharing sites. Sookman says, quote, Canada's outdated laws have hurt all sectors of the creative industries, including the creators and artists who rely on copyright for protection, and have diminished Canada's reputation among the G8 and other trading partners. Sookman notes that since Canada signed the WIPO treaties in 1996, it has acknowledged a need to address digital technologies and the internet. He adamantly believes that Canada needs to modernize its copyright laws and follow the lead of its most important trading partners, such as the US and UK.
In the old times it was not a crime.
What are our neighbors in the South doing to combat this trend? In 1997, the United States enacted the No Electronic Theft Act, making it illegal to reproduce, distribute, or share copies of electronic copyrighted works, regardless whether or not it was for commercial or financial gain. Then in 1998, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act was enacted and signed into law by then President Bill Clinton.
Outlined in its main provisions, the DMCA makes it a crime to disable anti-piracy measures in goods such as software, outlaws code cracking devices, requires service providers to remove items from their websites if one suspects copyright infringement, and limits liabilities of non-profit institutions of higher education. The other significant point of this act is that it protects internet service providers, making them not liable for user activities on the internet.
Now, looking at ongoing negotiations involving the anti-counterfeiting trade agreement, re-emerging trends are evident. One being the role of the internet service provider. Michael Geist points out 2 provisions in the latest draft of the agreement that show internet service providers as neutral parties in the privacy debate. Each party shall endeavor to promote cooperative efforts within the business community to effectively address copyright or related rights infringement while preserving legitimate competition and consistent with each party's law, preserving fundamental principles such as freedom of expression, fair process, and privacy. Another area of noted interest is circumventing technology. That is, technologies or software that allow for bypassing of securities on copyrighted materials. ACTA has already undergone considerable debate about this aspect of internet copyright, but still there is no clear view of a final stance on the issue.
Michael Geist comments that in the latest draft of the agreement to be released, the primary requirement is a mirror of the WIPO Internet Treaty provision, which features considerable flexibility in implementation. He says, in essence, the trend on digital locks and anti-circumvention seems to be moving away from a US preference.
Moving away from US preference also seems to be the route Bill C-32 is taking. Michael Geist points the 5 contentious points in the bill: digital lock provisions, fair dealing reform, internet service provider liability, statutory damages reform, and extending the private copying levy. As he states, a significant point is the digital lock rules, which are an import from the US and are by far the biggest problem with the bill since they effectively trump virtually all other copyright laws, particularly fair dealing and the new consumer exceptions, and extend far beyond what is required to comply with the WIPO Internet treaties.
The fair dealing reforms, which add education, parody, and satire to the list of fair dealing categories, represent a reasonable compromise between those seeking a US-style fair use provision and those opposed to new exception categories. C-32 again tries to hold ISPs as neutral parties, and as Geist points out, this is critically important in order to foster a robust and vibrant online world.
So some recurring trends emerge with these legislations. It seems that internet service providers will continue to maintain neutrality and will hold no responsibility. And the other important trend is a focus on electronic lock breaking. So the important question is, will focusing on these specific aspects ever give these legislations the power to curb a very powerful trend of online piracy?
In our view, no. If you try to get a population to stop doing something by telling them it's illegal, they'll just keep doing it because they feel it shouldn't be illegal. Also, a national task force can't monitor activity on the whole of the internet, and an international task force can't monitor every specific case.
If piracy is ever to stop, we must be the ones who decide to stop, and the only way we will do that is if we're presented with a legitimate alternative, and the government is not going to provide that for us. It's up to the businesses. They're the ones that must incorporate themselves into file sharing, and they must give us the options we need.
Easy. So why do people... start over.
Okay, don't worry.
Sucks. Fuck. An activity. Professor at I forgot that part.